happening now. We'd like to welcome our guests from across North America and around the world. This is the EdTech Situation Room, episode 90 for March the 28th, 2018. And I'm so excited about tonight. I am Wes Fryer, joining you from Oklahoma City, where I am the Director of Technology at the Cassidy School. And I can toss it down to Florida, where Felix Giacomino, the amazing EdTech Yoda of the entire east of the Mississippi. If you need to find one person, he's your guy. So Felix, welcome.
Wow, what a welcome. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'm Felix Giacomino. I'm the Director of Innovation and Technology at Gulliver Schools. Gulliver is the fifth largest independent school in the United States. And it's a private school down here in Miami. I'm about to finish my second year there. And I went from a very small school of about 300 students to Gulliver, which is about 2,300 students. So big jump there, but a welcome challenge for sure.
Absolutely. Well, here on the show, if you're new, we are usually talking, and we will tonight, about recent technology news through an educational lens. Lots of times it's Jason Neiffer and I, but Jason is working on getting his dissertation finished in Montana from the University of Montana. And so he will, we think, probably be joining back here in a couple weeks, but we've been having an opportunity to have guests on the show. And Felix, I know you were able to tune in to last week's conversation with Carl, and then with Carl Hooker, and then Jen Carey the week before. So before we talk about an article or whatever, I got to ask you a question. What has been some of your biggest personal learning points and just ahas as far as moving from those school situations, from the small to the large, and just for your different situation, because you're 2 years in now? So
yeah, that's a great question. Things don't always scale the way you think they might. Coming from a school of only 300 students, where it was myself and our good friend Inga Wassman and Jenny down there and Ashley Cross, which I know you know as well. We were a tight, small group that spoke every day. Everybody saw everybody every day. To now, if I could go on probably a whole year and maybe see somebody once or less. It's incredible.
Because how many staff do you have? I mean, what's the total staff?
Teachers, it's about 350 total staff and teachers, non-students, I'd say about 550 or so.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So plus the 2,300-ish students, it's a lot of faces across 4 campuses as well. So that's been the biggest. We know that in education, so much has to do with relationships and building those relationships. How in the world do you build relationships with that many people? You know what I mean? Authentic ones anyway. So I find myself walking around a lot, trying to, have lunch with somebody different every day in the lunchroom, just popping in and seeing what's going on. But also, if you haven't met that person yet, you can't just kind of waltz into the room. Some people you've already had conversations with, they'll wave you down. Hey, come on in, check out what we're doing. Other ones, you just know, well, I've got to put it on my checklist to have a conversation with that person first.
Absolutely. And I'm, 3 years in, and really feel at this point so thankful that a lot of relationships have been established and a lot of things are happening. I'm just I was able to do a collaboration with one of our senior English teachers with Book Creator, and she'd been doing this for 6 years. Where her kids create picture books for our pre-K kids, and anyway, just wonderful. Had never done ebooks, and then the word spread, and now I'm working with a 7th grade English teacher. And anyway, but it takes time. It takes time to.
It does. And how large of a place are you at, Wes?
We've got about 900 students, and we've got about 170 total faculty and staff. I think somewhere around 190 faculty, something like that.
Wow. So, okay, that's large.
So it is, yeah. Well, for 2 of us, it's a little aggressive. So yeah. I should talk with you later on your advice for advocating inside the politics of the school for positions and whatever.
Absolutely.
In the midst of doing that. But let's talk about some tech news, or we could go back to some of the things that you heard Carl and Jen and I talking about in the last couple of weeks. Where would you like to start tonight's conversation?
Sure. Let me just add one last thing to the part about Gulliver. We are currently searching for a computer science teacher, and it's not an accurate description because this position would work very closely with the engineering department head, and it would involve everything under the sun that that this podcast talks about: STEM, robotics, computer science, programming, all of the above, engineering. The opportunity is huge. So if you want to learn more, just go to gulliverschools.org and go to the jobs section. And we are looking to hire the best. So
awesome.
I just want to do that. So, gosh, I wrote down a couple of things that I wanted to touch on. However, to get one thing out of the way, I told you I just got back from Tampa, and we went to Busch Gardens, and we were just riding roller coasters. Basically, the four of us, we love riding them, and that's what we're doing. I was texting with some EdTech, I think it was Carl, actually. I was texting with him right before I got on the Shikra. Now, you got to look up the Shikra, straight down, 90 degrees, straight down towards the earth. And I put it in my pocket, get off the Shikra, and I'm like, oh, cool. Let me find out where Judy and Alexandra. I check my pockets. Oh, my gosh, my phone is gone. My phone is gone. My phone is gone. I'm like, where did it go? It had to have disappeared. I knew it. Okay, so I'm like, well, I have my Apple Watch. First, I have to find Judy. Maybe I can ping it, right, with Find My iPhone. But I couldn't find her yet because I didn't have a phone to contact her. So I start looking with my watch, and I can see it's not connected. So I'm walking. Finally, I see that there's a connection. So I'm within X amount of feet or whatever from my phone, to my phone. So I'm hitting ping. Okay, this is a roller coaster theme park. Like, I'm going to hear a little ding, 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 where it could be anywhere. I don't find it. I keep looking. 4 stories up, there's a net right towards the end of the ride to, I guess, catch stuff. And it's in some of the more likely places. And sure enough, I spotted it. Called the manager over. She got some of the engineers over, and they fetched it for me, unscathed. And she's like, oh, it's not uncommon for us to find phones in the parking lot, on the roofs of stuff. And when we do, they're usually smashed to smithereens. And so I'm feeling very lucky today.
Absolutely. And that was a 10, right? A 10.
It's a 10. So yeah, it's not exactly a $140 phone.
Yeah, not like wow.
Anyway, so
right.
I just wanted to get that because I'm like, phew, feeling it.
That's right. Now, but let me ask you, I've got to ask a little tech question. From your iWatch or your Apple Watch, could you have made it, you were making it make the noise for the Lost from your phone? So
correct.
Okay.
Correct. But because of it really was about 3 or 4 stories up. Forget about it.
Right.
Had I been closer, yeah. But it was on the net, it was face down. So I spot it, and finally by that time Judy's with me, and I grab her phone and I call it, and I can see the screen light up. So I'm like, I'm 100% sure, because somebody had said, oh, yeah, phone just fell and was smashed, and they turned it in. And I'm like, oh no, it was somebody else's iPhone 7. Yeah. So I knew it wasn't mine because they said it was a 7. I was just like, oh my. Anyway, feeling very lucky.
That'll make your day. All right. So we had a big Apple event. We could jump right into that if we wanted to, or anywhere else. So where would you like to
be honest, that happened while I was at Busch Gardens. So I did a little bit of cramming before this, so I can speak a little bit to it. So if you want to talk to it, that's great.
It's up to you. You're the guest.
Know about the less expensive iPad. So that I think is a welcome. Something that's welcome, anytime the price goes down, education says, yay, we could do more. So I think that's great. I think on the pencil, it's only $10 cheaper.
Yeah, but I think actually the iPad, I think they're keeping it the same, aren't they? Because it's a $329 commercial, $299 education. But
is that the same as before, the $299?
I think it is, but it's more capable. It all of it works with the Apple Pencil.
Correct.
More powerful. I mean, the stuff that excited me the most. Well, they increased the storage for iCloud per educational user, 200 gigs from 5 gigs. So that's a substantial jump. But I think
that's infinitely less than Google, but we won't go there. I just did go there.
There you go. That's all right. But the schoolwork application where it looks like they're trying to get a little bit like Google Classroom and needing to facilitate the exchange and stuff like that. So Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Somebody had asked me recently because we've got, and this is, I know, small potatoes by other standards, but we've got a little over 100 iPads that we manage, and then we've got somewhere in the neighborhood of 260 or so Chromebooks. We're very heavily invested in Google, and they asked me, what would it take for you to leave the Google universe? It was actually somebody who was looking at Microsoft 365, and they were talking about running both and all that. And I said, man, it would take a lot. Of course, once you're invested in an ecosystem, it's hard, to switch. But yeah, the collaborative features and just so much with what we can do with Google. I want to do a shout out to Peggy George and Scott Summer, who are both live in our chat room. So if you are viewing live, please feel free to jump into our chat where we'll have a back channel and field any questions that you guys have or feedback.
Hi, Peggy. How's Arizona?
Are you? Okay. Where is your school in terms of devices and platforms? Are you guys Google? And
that's what I was hoping the next conversation would be. Yes, we are like you, all over the place. We've got hundreds of iPads. We've got hundreds of. I just purchased 400 and a little over 400 Chromebooks for grades 2 through 4. We are iPads, also grades like K through 4 in sets. Teachers, I inherited a fully Microsoft infrastructure and system, right? So I have a Microsoft certified systems engineer, network engineer. I myself am a certified Microsoft certified systems engineer, so I speak that language. The teachers have all Surfaces, Surface Pro 3s. Those are end of life. So we are probably going with Lenovo for this upcoming year, the Lenovo Yoga X1s. But not only that, we might be offering a choice. And that choice might be a certain fruit, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be a welcome thing. It's a little bit, this school has not seen that in a very long time. And there are some Apple products, but they tend to be in the yearbook lab, in dedicated spots in those multimedia, because Apple's better at you know what I mean?
Right.
That.
Sure.
And I tried to actually get, and Jen Carey mentioned this, how nice the new Microsoft Pro is, the big iMac looking one that goes flat, that you can draft. I tried to get that for our architecture program because we have a signature architecture program, and it's not quite there yet as far as just the power, the processing speed to render real architecture stuff. It just it's not quite there yet, but they're beautiful machines. So yeah, traditionally all Windows, but I'm starting to open a door to choice. And as of today, not with the intention to go all Mac. I like the fact that it is representative of the real world. Different people have different, not everybody uses iPhones. Not everybody, uses the same thing. Starbucks doesn't stop you at the door and says, to ask what kind of device do you have to see if you can join our Wi-Fi. It's just as agnostic as it gets. So that pretty much paints a picture. But I did want to make one more comment to that is, with the teachers being pretty much 100% Windows, we're BYOD, 5th grade through 12th.
Really? Wow.
Take a wild guess as to what 95+% students bring.
The MacBook Air.
Absolutely. MacBook Air, MacBook Pro, MacBook.
Okay.
Yeah. It's very heavy on the Apple side for students. It's their platform of choice.
Before the show, we were talking briefly about recommendations and how it can be maybe better in some cases not to recommend, this device, this platform. And boy, I can't tell you how many conversations I've had both with our staff as well as with parents, looking for a laptop. What do I need? And I'm encouraging to look Chromebook, but my child really wants a MacBook. Of course they want a Mac, right?
Yeah, of course they do.
What do they want to do? And so, anyway, that's pretty interesting. We've offered some.
Sweetie, let's get your first car.
Yeah, let's
look. The Honda Civic got really good ratings this year, but Dad, the Ferrari is so nice. What do you need? What do you need, and what have you got? So yeah, that's a conversation for sure.
That's right. Hey, well, Peggy actually referenced an article in the chat room that's not in the show, but we can mention. There's been a lot of articles about Facebook, of course, and Cambridge Analytica and all of that stuff, but people being able to download all of their phone calls and text messages that were tracked on Android and not iOS. So I'll see if I can drop a link to an article that's about that. But that's pretty interesting, and supposedly is one of these things where, you know, Facebook said, well, you agreed to that, you know, but it was, that was a substantial privacy difference between the Android platform and iOS. So on that note, have you made any changes to your own Facebook use, and do you feel questions about that at school with parents saying, should we ditch Facebook and privacy?
The parents haven't mentioned Facebook yet. I've been very dormant on Facebook lately, only because, well, along with shifting, you know, to this new school and finishing off my master's and, you know, all these other things that I'm doing, the usage has gone way down. However, after listening to your previous two podcasts, I'll be visiting that because, I don't know, I tend to a fault, just trust a little bit more than I should, or a lot more. But the more I listen, the more I read, the more I learn, the more I'm starting to pay attention. You put in one of the articles on the ad blocker Ghostery and the Clicks browser, and I did some learning on that as well because, well, we should be paying attention, and we should have a voice on as it relates to privacy. I'll be tweaking stuff. Carl had mentioned about he went to Twitter for the first time in a long time to see what apps still had access to his account, and it was over 120 or so. And I did that recently, and then, yeah, sure enough, I trimmed down a lot. So, you know, what kind of services might be out there that are could do this for us? I think you mentioned something like that. I know there's a couple of services out there that claim to do that, and one of them is it'll cut you out of everything altogether.
Yeah,
but,
right. Well,
you know, if you want to take that extreme approach.
Yeah, and we're both very much, I think, advocates for digital sharing, right? I mean,
of course, absolutely,
and it's an important voice for us to, or advocacy platform to continue to remind people of, you know, amidst surveillance and amidst everything that's happening with privacy. There's so much wonderful, you know, good things that can and have happened and will happen as a result of sharing. So yeah, that was a Wired article from March 18th. AdBlock Ghostery just went open source and has a new business model. And, you know, it's interesting to see what different privacy settings allow you to do. I'm still not convinced. Like I drank the Google Kool-Aid a long time ago. I'm very, you know, positive and feeling good, you know, generally about how Google doesn't want to be evil. But you know, the business model, and maybe we can get into some of those articles, or maybe I'll just mention it now. Let me see. You know, these don't just concern Facebook. I think yeah, this is it. Well, no, is this the? Where is it? It was an article basically saying that, you know, this is just the tip of the iceberg, and it really appears that regulation is on the horizon. You know, there's been a wild west for privacy and things like that. I dropped a link in for a video actually just shared on our digital citizenship website. It's I think it's a CSNBC video, but it's just a 3-minute, very well done narrated slideshow, and we titled it "Social Media Privacy Settings and Election Hacking." But that was one I just got to talk to our upper division high school faculty yesterday, and we modeled one of these lessons where, you know, show this short video to students and then have a discussion, let them talk with each other about these questions, and then you know, share some things together. And you know, I think it's good that we're talking about this, right? Because we've, you know, the conversation, even I wish we weren't having as many conversations about fake news. I mean, you know, a couple of years ago, I never imagined that, you know, media literacy and needing to vet, you know, authority would have the profile that it does today. Right.
That it will be that extreme, and that that it's been that invasive to everything that happens online. It is a little bit mind-blowing and overwhelming. You had asked about our parents, and making a connection to a previous comment that you made, and maybe some parents on your side of the world were talking about wait until 8.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Yeah, that I heard it coming down our way, and I was like, oh, I hope it doesn't, because the school wouldn't take that stand. That would be something that we make sure that we draw the line and be like, look, if you as a parent want to do that, that's fine. You could,
Right.
why don't you go to Starbucks, have your own little club, talk about it and all that. But
Yeah.
as a school, we won't give you the soapbox for something
Our
like that.
our perspective on that has been, number one, and by the way, shout out, because Carl Hooker, we had him come to our school 2 years ago to do a wonderful set of presentations for parents as well as for kids. Talk to our different divisions about digital citizenship. We've wanted to basically get parents in front of each other talking, because we do have a group that is feeling like that wait till 8. I think we're living in a time where blaming cell phones, and maybe Jen talked about this on the show, right?
Yep.
We used to blame the TV.
The new boogeyman.
The TV, right? Exactly.
The new boogeyman. Absolutely.
And so,
Absolutely. But
we
giving the parents a voice about it is a good idea. I think a couple of times in our conversations, we threw out the word ed camp just as a model, maybe not to have an entire ed camp, but maybe just use the model as in, look, you're not the expert, you're just facilitating, you're getting the conversation started, but it's really about the conversation.
right.
Have something like that. But we do have to tread lightly. And going back to the word recommendation that you said, as a school, I think what we could do is we could provide resources, we could provide speakers, consultants. We had Devorah Heitner, the author of Screenwise.
Right.
Yep, she came and spoke with the parents last year, and they loved her. It's important to have that conversation, of course, and provide resources, provide speakers and conversation,
Right.
and all that.
And it's a lot,
but draw the line.
It's about parenting in general, right? Because we're not going to tell parents, "Hey, this is the only way for you to parent." We're going to.
I'll be glad to. Yeah, I'll be glad to share with you what's worked so far, and even what hasn't worked in the Giacomino household. And I'd love to hear how the Friars do it, and I'd continue on down the line to everybody else and have that conversation. But as a school, we've pretty much decided, well, we can't say, here's what we recommend, because, well, it's just the nature of different families and the different dynamics. And as soon as we make a recommendation, should that not fit that family and backfire on them or whatever, then they could point back to it and say, hey, you recommended this. So that's the conversation we're having about that.
And conversations is the key. That's why we call our digital website, Digital Citizenship Conversations, because we want to get the conversations going. I mean, there's going to be some stuff that's going to be bright line, violations of the law,
correct.
And some of the health stuff, right? I mean, we're not really getting controversial when we talk about sleep, and we talk about, how important it is to consider, if you're reading your white light device, right before you sleep, you're sleeping with it. But even that, there's going to be different decisions that different families are going to make. But it's been, I think, positive, and we want to continue this to let parents share different perspectives about what they're doing. And sometimes that's giving parents permission even to know things like, yes, you can have your child's passcode. Yes, that is your device. I mean, some of that is wanting parents to feel empowered and understand that, even though their child may say this, or it sounds like everybody's doing such and such.
Right.
But it's an interesting landscape.
Going back to having conversations, and Devorah says that really well in her book again. It's not about spying on your kid. It's not about, just kind of installing everything you can to block and then catch, but rather have the conversation. Sure, use tools to your advantage, absolutely. But have the conversation first and say, look, these are the guidelines. I will I do have the authority and the ability to spot check, and that's what I'll be doing. Give the heads up, so there's still trust there, and I think that's the way to go. I'd be glad to share, in any conversation with any parent what's worked and what hasn't for me anyway.
So I'll put this in the show notes, but Devorah Heitner is the article of Screenwise, Helping Kids Thrive and Survive in the Digital World. That's great. Yep. October 2015 book. So
check out her TED Talk as well. Yeah, it's great.
You can get the hardcover for $195.
Oh, look at that. I'm sure I could swing a discount for you, Wes. I know Devora.
Isn't that that's crazy? But it's just obviously
I saw
out
that
of
too. I might have pointed that out to her.
Paperback $7.93, Kindle $7.99, hardcover $1.95, but it's with Prime.
Yeah. Oh well, there you go. The shipping's free. Yeah, that's the one where the drone brings it to you. Yeah, I think I did tell her that. I caught that mistake, and maybe I don't know. Amazon could be quirky that way sometimes.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, well, good. Let's see. We've got a couple comments from the chat.
Wes, where are you seeing the comments? Because I hit the group chat right here in the Hangouts. Is it
right
there?
Well, so here's the little trick. I have my second machine here. I'm using the wife's laptop, and then I've got another one because you can't actually see it in the Hangout here. You have to view the you have to view it from YouTube. So what I actually do is open up a tab with Twitter, click the link to the Hangout from the EdTech SR, make sure I'm muted so we don't get feedback noise.
Sure.
And then you can click in the corner, you can do pop-out chat. And so then I just have it as pop-out chat. So yeah,
all right. Well, since you just gave me an EdTech tip, I'll share an EdTech tip right now out of the blue. And it's actually the tweet that's gotten a lot of retweets, the most retweeted tweet that I've had lately. And it's very simple, actually. I was listening to a podcast on just EdTech stuff, and somebody said this. And I'm like, wow, I didn't know that. I wonder if there's other people that didn't know that. And that is, here, I'll just read it out. Need to edit a PDF but don't have Acrobat Pro? Upload the PDF to Google Drive, right-click it, and choose Open with Google Docs. That's it. It's that simple. Did you know that?
OCR.
Yeah,
we've done a bit of that. Yeah, and I had
no idea, but it's been, you know, let me see, in the analytics here, it's had over almost 7,000 impressions and tons of retweets and all that, and I guess I wasn't alone, but
hey, the power of digital sharing, right? So that's
yeah, absolutely. I'm still trying to find something that Tony Vincent doesn't know. So today I do,
that's right.
We'll have a podcast about that.
That's absolutely right. Okay, well, let's see. There's this has been an article. Sometimes we don't talk about them. They kind of continue to stay in the articles, and so I'll mention this. Wikispaces shutting down on July 31st, 2018. So Brian Crosby is a wonderful STEM educator up in Nevada and was one of the people that alerted me to it because he was asking, what do you think and where should I go? And I've been on Google Sites for quite a while. I think probably since 2010. I was on PB Works and PB Wiki.
Yeah, PB. I still used to get the I know.
I haven't yet migrated to the new Google Sites because I've been waiting for a migration tool.
And I agree with Jen what she said. It's so much better.
Good.
Tons better. It doesn't look and smell like a Google site from a mile away.
That came from what was it called? Jot or something? I mean, when I was back at Texas Tech in the early 2000s, I mean, that's early days of Web 2.0, and that was one of those things that, Google purchased and, they were kind of making their own. So yeah, they rewrote the code, I think, from the top. So
how about Posterous? Don't you miss Posterous? Wasn't that the best?
Oh, man. Yeah, you're just going to make
But you know what, though? One of the guys went on to do, and which is what I use for posts.felixgiacomino.com, anyway, where post all my presentations, and it's called Post Haven.
I still am paying for that. It's only $5 a month. Yeah.
And the promise is that will never do what Posterous did to you and close. So we'll see how that goes. But
it hasn't though, and I have not played with it recently. But it's not quite Posterous in terms of you can't just throw any file at it and have it embedded. And
I haven't played with it lately either. I know what I use it for, and it works for that reason. However, now thinking through it, my WordPress site could do that as well. Yeah. So we'll see.
Yep. Let's see. Here's a security article. This is from Bloomberg. Russian hackers attacking U.S. power grid and aviation, FBI warns. This was from March the 15th. And this isn't old news, but one of the things I feel like has been elevated so strongly with the election news, and of course we hear about our chief executive and Mueller and the investigations and all this is how much chaos Russia has wanted to sow in Western democracies. and how they're really about doing bad stuff, right? I mean, we were talking today, and my son is home for spring break. He came home yesterday, and he mentioned it at lunch. And they just killed a former Russian spy in the UK with a Cold War gas agent or whatever. So
yes, I read about that.
I mean, and this is something where you can go so far down the survivalist path, the conspiracy path, to be like, definitely need your tinfoil hat and be way out there. But on the other hand, I mean, you live in hurricane country. We live in tornado country, in earthquake country now. And FEMA, they recommend that you do some basic kinds of things to prepare for natural disaster and for electricity being out. I mean, we haven't had an ice storm in a while, but they do happen. So I mean, where are you on all that stuff about, will the power grid be down for a while?
I have a simple question, and that is, why is it connected to the internet to begin with? And I know that sounds like a ridiculous question. I understand people in the power grid or that control it, there has to be some sort of internet access, but that's the same question I had when that hacker, that ethical hacker, thank goodness in this case, got into the plane's flight controls using his computer on the entertainment system.
Right. Yeah.
So he got into the entertainment system. I don't know. I've never seen an Ethernet port, in a chair anywhere on a plane, but somehow he did it, right? But what in the world is the entertainment system? Why would it be in any which way, shape, or form connected physically to the flight control system? How is that a backdoor at all?
Well, and that's that right there. In fact, I don't know if we talked about this article on the show or if it was this weekend, but there was. I'll definitely put this in the show notes, because it was an article saying it's about ethics and computer science and weaponization. That chemistry, he was saying, with dynamite and also actually poison gas in World War I, they came to realize, wow, what we're doing can be weaponized. Physics with, the atom bomb and nuclear power, and then you've got nuclear weapons, eugenics and biology. And so anyway, that this isn't a Hiroshima moment, but we need for computer scientists, in the same way that physicists or chemists know that ethics, doctors, I mean, it's essential. It's an essential part of the way people are certified. Like doctors have Hippocratic oaths to do good and not to do harm. And so it's something I've talked about with our computer science, teachers. And right now, I think it's something that it might be extra. We might kind of layer that in, but it's not something like, oh yeah, of course, we're definitely, hitting the ethics hard. And so I think what's happened with the Facebook hack, and we're open for this today, right? In our next elections that we're going to have, I think every Western country that's open is, and the tools that Silicon Valley's created for advertisers make it very challenging in terms of bad actors. If you've got somebody that wants to sow chaos or wants to promote a real fringe agenda or an agenda of hate, it's going to be challenging. So I think that our coders need to be ethical, and hopefully in schools will respond to that.
Absolutely. And where the digital can have physical implications, such as a power grid or flight controls and stuff like that, this is a military issue, like a military grade issue, where these are civilians now that are whose lives are at stake, and we've got to put the right people and the right resources, right?
Absolutely.
And just get the right resources, get the best of the best, because that's what keeps us who we are.
Yep, definitely. Well, let's mention a couple new articles and videos that have happened as far as, let's do a fun one, and then we'll talk social media. Here's one, because I know you've got lots of old school tech. You got the best wall ever of like old tech. This was in Gadget on March 22nd. CDs and vinyl are outselling digital music downloads. Now, to be clear, we've got subscription streaming services, and those are the ones that are really, leading the charge. But we've got a big comeback. So does the Giacomino house, have some LPs that you throw on every once in a while to go old school?
You know what? I gave away all my LPs to a friend who I'm still friends with. So if I got nostalgic enough, I could probably go with it. And he's a DJ, and he keeps good care of them. But no, we do not have a record player. We don't have, and I don't know the last time I popped a CD into a player. I just don't, because we are a Spotify family.
Ah,
We
okay.
love Spotify.
Okay, so
And
sell me on Spotify, because now that I've got the Android, I was telling you before the show, I got my Apple Music now on my Android. So yeah, I'm
look
liking
at that. Wow.
But I mean, I've been thinking about Google Play Music or Spotify, because we've invested in the Google Home
Right.
minis, right? So why are you a Spotify family? What's
you know what? I think because they went streaming before Apple did, and that's what I started with. Then I tried Apple because, I mean, if anybody knows anything about me, I might have a thing or two from Apple. And what I did is I went to Apple to say, okay, what are you offering me that Spotify's not? And I couldn't find it. Really, all I'm interested in is hearing the song I want to hear when I want to hear it. I was never a Pandora person. I would only use it like at dinner parties and stuff like that. But if I'm gonna pay to get the ads out and not have an ad come on while you're having your brie and cheese and wine with your guests, I'd rather just pay for a Spotify subscription, a little bit more, of course, and get the playlist that I want, or subscribe to a radio station and not worry about that. So when I went back to Apple Music, I didn't find anything that it offered me. And as a matter of fact, I think I have a lot of missing music somewhere. I thought I'd pretty much have forever, tied to the same account. But every once in a while, I think to myself, well, I know that song I did have when I was with Apple Music, but for iTunes, right? And now I can't find it. So I have to do some digging around. But so it's $10 a month. And Judy and I share that account, which means that only one of us could be on at a time. And that's not a problem. But because we have a senior, like you do, sharing it with her did not work out. But it's only $5 more to add I believe it was a student.
Yeah.
It's because she's a student. So for $15, Giacominos can listen to anything whenever. And I love that Madam A connects to Spotify.
Let me actually ask you that question, because we were visiting about that as well too. So, were you an early adopter of Madam A, and what are your favorite things to do with your smart assistant?
Oh gosh. Well, first of all, connect her to If This Then That. So I've done entire sessions on If This Then That, and gosh, let me think of any of them. I mean, turning on lights. Just kind of like Jen said, the light switch in the middle of a room. Anyway, tune into that episode. What else? Okay, here's something I enjoy. I like cooking, right? But I like watching TV. I like listening to music. Sometimes we're listening to music so loudly, or maybe we might be doing karaoke, or I might be playing the piano, and it's like the family's just being real loud, but I've got something in the oven. So what I did is I created an If This Then That recipe that says, if your Madame A timer reaches 0, then blink the piano lights, because there's a lamp on top of my piano and I've got a hue on it. So that way, if we're being really loud and we can't hear the alarm, the lights going, and we're like, why are the lights? Oh, that's right, it's in the oven. The breeze about to go too long. So that's one thing I use it for. But the girls are always asking jokes and this and that, and yes, homework help as well. So
now, can you play podcasts on it? Can you say, listen to such and such podcasts?
Yep.
It'll do that.
Yep. It takes a little bit of a setup. Podcast. You know what? I'm sorry, I jumped on that one. What I've listened to it on it is books.
Books, okay. Because I was thinking it doesn't do podcasts yet. I think that's one place that the Google,
not
Google
podcasts. Books.
I'll say this, between my Apple Pencil, which is very wand-like, right?
Yes.
And being able to speak to our Google Assistant. I mean, to me, this is the Harry Potter time, and you've got to get your spell right. I was at my parents' house over spring break, and they have a Harmony remote, and I was being frustrated trying to get everything to work. But when you get that Harmony set up, the Google Assistant will plug into it. And so you can say things like, turn on such and such, and shortcuts and whatever.
Right. And by the way, we're not exclusively on the Amazon side. We've got a Google Home as well.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah. And actually they're real close to each other. So one of them is right here in my kitchen and one's in the room right behind me. So they're right there. And sometimes I'll ask something on one, I don't get what I want, I'll ask the other, and I'm like, haha, she did a better job. But sometimes the other one does a better job. So constantly comparing the two.
Can you get them to talk to each other?
I've tried. I've thought of it. I haven't quite figured out how to do that yet.
And
But there's got to be a way. Well, you know what? I bet you with Simon Says, you could do it.
Did your Madame A ever laugh unexpectedly, like Carl said?
No, but I heard about that, and that sounds real creepy.
Yeah,
that sounds really creepy. He did not do that, but I know that you could ask her to play Simon Says, and basically she'll repeat what you say. So if you do that and have her say the trigger for Google Home, that might get something started.
Hey, Peggy is just saying she didn't know you had done sessions on If This Then That. So yes. Peggy, perhaps, and I don't know if there may not be room in this year's show, or left shows, but Classroom 2.0 Live, shout out, wonderful Saturday morning professional development. Yeah, maybe you can hit Felix up to share some of his
I'd be glad to come back on
that tricks. That would be
Absolutely.
Cool. Okay, well, let's we can go back and talk some social media, but actually I want to throw a couple biotech articles, and I'm throwing these at you because I just added them here at the full disclosure. Flipboard on my iPad, and it one of different Twitter feed magazine up come on. And sometimes we talk about technologies like CRISPR, or how genomics is a really big industry of the future, place that with biotech, because Ray Kurzweil says we're going to about how through evolutionary time different amino acids combined, and that led to different kinds of breakthroughs in terms of what the body can do and how it works. But computationally things have been limited, so they've been working on this for a long time. This guy's named Baker. He devised a game where citizen scientists, they basically crowdsourced it. Reminded me a little of SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, when they had all this numbers to crunch, and they asked people to run screensavers, and they'd be able to crunch the data. Well, anyway, they've been able to make great strides with this. And so he has a biological Rosetta Stone, and it's looking at how to create new medicines to include addressing things like Alzheimer's and all kinds of things. But let me read this little section, because this is just crazy. Baker's lab is working on an equally diverse set of applications, including a vaccine that would simultaneously protect against all strains of the influenza virus, a system to break down the common grain protein in gluten, and the hope of helping people with celiac disease. And this is the part that blows my mind. Others are looking for proteins that help convert solar energy to fuel. Baker pointed out there are 20 to the 200th possible proteins, which is more than the number of atoms in the universe. Evolution has produced just a minute fraction, so there's plenty of room to expand. Oh my gosh. So my question for you, Felix, have you done 23andMe? Because we talked about that a little bit. And what are your thoughts on that? And then do you guys have programs where you feel like kids are being encouraged and tracked towards genomics, towards, that kind of biotech? What are your thoughts on that?
I love the research that's behind it all. And one more time, jumping with your, I really hope these people are not evil, and that's not the way it's going. And the reason why it's done it, hopefully we're not giving all this to Skynet. So that's my hope. I have done 23andMe. As a matter of fact, if you go to felixj.me/23andme, spelled out, 23, the numbers and me, you can see that there. I think it's fascinating. Being a fan of Ray Kurzweil and the book that I shared with you before the show about digital immortality, I feel like all this stuff that we're figuring out now is like trying to help and better our current bodies while they're still biological. That sounds crazy and nuts. It used to be unthinkable. I'm now convinced that it's not an impossibility. I think it's just that's the way it's going to go. A question I think about all the time: will I be able to upload my consciousness?
And there you have it, folks. Deep thoughts.
You know, I mean, I
Yeah.
think that'd be such an interesting thing.
Hey, yeah, because what? Well, I don't know.
Come back. I mean, come back. Like you die,
Right.
and then like let's say like you come back when they figured out how to download that uploaded consciousness, and then somebody else. But then you go down the rabbit hole of, well, wait a second. If you were uploaded, then downloaded to somewhere else, what happens if they download you to a second one, which is the real one?
So we're getting into really great philosophical questions like the mind, body, spirit, and how where is the soul, and what is what is biological, and what maybe mystical and transcendent of biology. And it makes me think, when Carl and I were talking last week about South by Southwest, there was a video, a virtual reality video that someone did, which was exploring the line between what scientists know and theorize, and then what we can imagine with regard to black holes and the creation of the universe and all this. And I'm thinking this is just really rich, fertile soil for all kinds of science fiction, right? Because I think I'm with you. I've watched enough Ray Kurzweil, and I've read a little bit. I mean, that is the future that he sees for us. And so it definitely is something. I mean, just like we've got folks that want to keep their vinyl and keep their records, and we've got folks that
want to keep their consciousness.
Right. It's those are going to be decisions that won't be ours. Those will be decisions of the future, for future generations. So definitely.
It's time for a moment of silence for the great Stephen Hawking.
That's right.
Okay. Yeah, he just passed.
He did.
And on Pi Day, I'm convinced he did that on purpose.
It was Pi Day. That's right. It was.
One of a parent at a former school, or a previous school I used to work at, was on the 0G flight with Dr. Hawking. How cool was that? Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Pretty amazing stuff. But again, I do welcome it. Just, of course, if everything goes well in the way I planned it, it sounds amazing.
Well, we've got really important things to figure out in terms of, I was, YouTube with its recommendation engine. Sometimes it'll take you down rabbit holes of conspiracy. It took me to a TED talk about existential threats, which I didn't know what these were. This is like sort of species ending kinds of things. And they were talking about the invention hat and how these different things come out of the hat. And aren't we thankful that, easy weapons that you create with sand and materials from your backyard, don't have nuclear sort of capability and power. But I mean, we've got some really important things to try to work through. I mean, there are some people, and I think, Hawking, I think, believes in extraterrestrials. I mean, some people think that, you don't end up being able to survive for millions of years because you blow yourself up.
Right.
There's important stuff for us to figure out, and hopefully we're going to be able to, thread that gap, because if you listen to Kurzweil and the march of artificial intelligence and computation, all this stuff, I mean, it's the elbow of exponential change. Things are happening so quickly, and they're going to test us. They are testing us so much as far as our ability to withstand change. And those decisions we had, but bring it back to school, we had a discussion Monday at lunch, because the guy who runs our cafeteria, who's amazing, his son's a freshman in high school. He's probably going to be over 300 almost without a doubt as a senior. He is a big boy and a lineman. And so anyway, we were just talking all about sports and about, parents and recruitment and all that stuff. And so I guess if you're shopping the sperm bank, you can already, kind of say, what intelligence do you want? Do you want to, somebody who was over 6 feet and all that kind of stuff? And so those things are going to play into what happens in schools, because, parents will have abilities.
I think I'll have on page 29, column C. Yeah, that's a good looking one right there. Yeah, I know. Shopping from catalogs for
absolutely.
I mean, we're already doing it with children now, but we could do it with our future selves, theoretically, right?
Yeah.
So this is what I want to come back as. But then again, will you come back as a biological life form as we know it?
Did you lose my stream for a little while?
I did. So I got some keywords.
Brother, I think you need to stop streaming. If you can tell the girls, we're almost done. We got about 15 minutes left. Yeah, the girls came back. They're streaming too. So this is how quality of service still works in the Friar home. Hey, we upgraded the modem, but nothing's perfect. So sorry
I wasn't
about
sure
that.
if it was you or me, so I was
No,
about to hop onto my 4G, but
it was me. Sorry. Okay, well, one more sort of biotech article. This one is from New Scientist, and this is one that I had to check. Like, okay, is it legit? What's the source? Newly discovered human organ may help explain how cancer spreads, and this is from today. And what they're from March 27th. So I guess it's from yesterday. And it says that there's this network of fluid-filled channels in the human body, and because of the way we have punctured the body in the past, and now we're able to insert a thin camera that can observe things, they think they've discovered this, and it may play into a lot of things, including how cancer spreads. I mean, it's just like, oh my gosh, suddenly
so
now.
Wait a second. So we could see it because we couldn't observe it before. And what is this? Like
we insert
inserting
a thin camera into the person's gastrointestinal tract, enable doctors to get this microscopic look at the tissue inside a person's gut. And so it acts as a shock absorber and also possibly a transportation system. And I mean, you don't read an article every day that's from a scientific. I mean, this appears to be legit, right? I mean, maybe New Scientist is not, but I think it is. And saying that maybe that can lead to earlier diagnosis of cancers and other issues. So, I'm fascinated by the whole idea of making the invisible visible. We talk about that with learning. We talk about how, we can use media and other kinds of technologies perhaps to get a window into what students understand and know and can do that may be more powerful than simply, paper and pencil and text in our traditional ways. And so anyway, this article is an example of that. A few weeks ago, there was one where they used some kind of remote sensing technology over the jungles of Guatemala, and they were able to see all this as the Mayan ruins that they had never seen before.
Yes, I saw that.
That's unbelievable. So this kind of biotech, I've mentioned it before on the show, but when I went back in the classroom after my doctorate for a couple of years teaching STEM, we had curiosity links, and I mean this would be an example of one that's just like, what, and anyway,
it is it's mind-numbing stuff. So I was reading this article as you're reading from it as well, and then I scrolled to the very bottom, and then there's all this other articles, and some of them are this site's not so bad, but tell me your thoughts on when you're reading an article, everything looks legit, you hope it is, and then at the bottom, the other articles are very clickbaity.
You know what? I did not see any of those because I browse with uBlock Origin. I just turned it off, and now I see those. So those talk about the invisible visible. Those articles were not at the bottom of my article because they're all ads. And uBlock Origin blocked all the ads.
They are. And these aren't
even on like
that bad.
Yeah, but still.
But a lot of times I'm reading what I figure is good information from reputable sources. But then I get to the bottom, I'm like, well, wait a second. They're allowing, and maybe it's just like, hey, look, it's a way to make money. But how if you're on a does Harvard at the bottom of their webpage, kind of give you clickbaity stuff just to make some money? No, Absolutely. They know better than to do that. So
that's right.
Is somebody not thinking this through on legit websites where?
Well, and where else do we find the news too? Yeah, my uBlock Origin blocked 13 links, or 46% of the I guess the content.
Now, what is that? What is that you're using? Is that a Chrome plugin?
It's a Chrome extension. Yeah, called
uBlock
Origin, and I'll drop a link for it in there. And it's one that Ben Wilkoff had recommended. It's very lightweight as far as the memory that it takes, but Isn't that wild? Yeah. So it's
that's crazy.
We didn't view different versions of the article, but what you saw and what I saw contributed to our perceptions of the potential legitimacy of the article. So wow.
So you know what? Wow. When you have blockers like that, maybe it blocks something that would otherwise raise a red flag and say, it's a little bit shady.
Nice
to see what's surrounding it, right?
Wow.
Good aha moment there. Speaking of Chrome, go ahead.
maybe that's room for a developer to have some kind of extension like that, right? Maybe you should have a flag like that. Go ahead.
Yeah. Speaking of Chrome extensions, I created my very first one.
Really? What is it?
Yeah, I can't tell you what it is.
Okay.
Actually, I did it for a friend, and it came out of curiosity. Somebody shared that there's a Chrome extension for you to easily change the format of a Google Doc to, like, let's say a PDF, or go from, at the end when you have the /edit, you could change it to /preview. And
that's a Tony Vincent trick, actually, right?
Oh, you revealed who I was doing it for. Anyway, so because of that, and then he added that to the end of that article, saying that now there's a extension for that. And I'm like, what's in an extension? How do you create them? And I kind of went down that path. I made a very, very simple one, but I don't want to kind of reveal yet what it is, because when it gets revealed, it'll be under the person who's
sure.
highlighted in this.
Right. Yes.
So I won't give that away just yet.
To be named. Very cool. All right. Well, we're getting close to the top of the hour. We won't do a Geek of the Week yet. I do want to mention a couple articles that I put under Google News. This is Wired from March 13th. YouTube will link directly to Wikipedia to fight conspiracy theories. I thought this is fascinating. There's been some articles about how, YouTube can really lead you down a rabbit hole because they want you to keep watching, right? And so you might watch a topic about, let's say, the landing on the moon, but then there's also going to be stuff about, we didn't ever land on the moon. It was a conspiracy. And you're going to dive deep, through these really, sometimes outlier opinions. And so this was interesting that rather than fight with video, they're going to fight with Wikipedia. So what?
Yep. I read all about that. And my initial reaction is bravo. Bravo YouTube for trying to at least get the conversation, get people thinking, and being a little more skeptical about what they see and hear just because it's in a video. I'll tell you, I've had my share of issues, and I don't know how I got to. Well, I know how I got to it. It's probably watching a video about something else, and all of a sudden I see something about flat earthers. I'm like, what? Listen, if you go to YouTube and you put flat earthers, there's no shortage of videos on people basically saying the earth is flat. I mean, like a plate, a disc.
Wow.
And there's and that gravity is an illusion. And really what's happening is this disc is accelerating at X amount of feet per second squared, yada, yada. So that's why it gives the illusion. But there's no shortage of it. and I got annoyed because I must have been logged in, taking a look at something. I couldn't believe it. It's like one of those, like, wait, this cannot be real. So of course you go down that rabbit hole, like you said, and they kept coming and coming. I'm like, this can't be real. This can't be real. And apparently it is. So.
And something to be aware of too is how are you logged in, right? Because if you're on your profile or whatever, then you can have some persistent,
Correct. And which is I usually watch YouTube with that turned off. Like, just don't follow my history, because then you're going to feed me stuff that I might no longer be interested in. Yeah,
I've enjoyed. That is one thing. Like on Apple TV, I'll watch YouTube, and I'm a geek, of course. So watching Kurzweil and TED Talks. And I don't do that all the time. There's other things I watch too. But anyway, it has been beneficial in that regard. But I think this is
same with us, and that is on our Apple TV. Our YouTube is not logged into anyone. So it basically has created its own history and suggestions based on what we've watched, usually as a family, not 100%, but there's a lot of, karaoke or performances by a cappella groups, as well as nerdy science stuff that I tend to watch.
Right. Well, that article had a reference to Florida because that was following what happened at Parkland High School. I'll do one other related article and then just ask you kind of what that's been like being in Florida with all of the crazy, and then the political and the student voice and all that stuff. This was an ABC News article yesterday. Parkland student David Hogg has been dismantling lawyers on social media, and basically he's been quite witty as well as just clever and effective in
Yep.
calling out different legislators, different folks, and he's really been able to stand up for himself and not have his voice muted. What's it been like to be an educator and a parent in Florida in the last month, Felix?
It's the conversation that's happening. That's for sure. If you go to the Gulliver School's Twitter feed, you'll see that our students took to the field and spelled out, we love MSD, real big on our field, and took a drone from above. We played them just, I believe it was last week, in lacrosse. So they were there. My daughter was just at a thespian festival in Tampa, as a matter of fact, and she got to speak to those students. A lot of conversation about that. And needless to say, from the executive leadership team at Gulliver, it's a weekly conversation that we have at our meetings, and we've hired some of the top consultants on what to do, and everything is out there. We've actually run active shooter drills at our school.
Wow.
And see how those go. Conversations about everything from bulletproof glass to what to do in certain situations. The parents want to know. So we've sent out communications letting them know, what are we doing now? What will be doing in the next few weeks and in the long term.
Yeah.
Because that's it. It's time to act. It's been time to act.
Yeah.
We're way overdue. But
Right.
this one, for some reason, has really been sobering.
Yeah. Well, as we mentioned on the show, I think amidst all of the negative and the things that make us say, oh, the world, the ways that students have responded, the articulate ways that they've been able to share their voice, the ways that they've been listened to, and the optimism of youth too, right? And it's like we've got, as you probably do too, service learning, kids that are, involved in the community and also on a global level with international things. So it's the voices of youth are so important, and it's so important to also see them not be silenced by the trolls and by the negative and all of those kind of things. So hopefully the March of Artificial Intelligence, as well as ethical computer scientists and others, there's going to be some good ways forward that we're going to be able to.
Structural engineers, hopefully, because
I
mentioned that because the bridge collapse.
Right.
The bridge collapse is 1.5 miles from my finger.
Oh, I didn't realize it was that close.
Had I been taking out the trash at that time, I would have heard it. Oh. Right. I probably would have heard it from inside my house. It's that close.
Gosh.
But exactly a mile and a half. And on our way to Tampa on Monday, I drove right through where it was, which had been closed for over a week. They finally cleared it. We saw all the rubble off to the sides and drove by there. So that was, wow, here 1 minute, gone the next. But saw some interesting conversations and problem solving going on with our engineering students, given everything that's been coming out. They've been watching the videos nonstop and having that conversation. Where did it go wrong? What could have been done?
Absolutely.
So, yeah, that's another very close to home.
We need to raise up that generation of problem solvers.
Yeah. So
all right.
That's it.
Well, we are a little bit beyond the top of the hour. We need to do some geeks of the week. So
Sure.
I'll go quick and then have you share yours. Mine is just for sketchnoting. I'm about to start a 7-part Making Media on Mondays series at our school.
Nice.
We haven't really done that, but doing different show with media products. We're going to do sketchnoting. And so Procreate has been my favorite sketch app from the iPad for quite a while. But a friend just shared one that I didn't know about for Android called ArtFlow. I just want to encourage everybody out there to consider the ways that sketching can fit into note-taking and, our visual creativity, and translating ideas into visual images can be both challenging and also beneficial from a sticky learning standpoint as far as learning. So Procreate and ArtFlow.
And those are, Procreate is iOS only and ArtFlow is Android only. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah. And I have not done much with ArtFlow yet. I've just actually downloaded it this week. So
cool.
How about you? What is your geek of the week?
So it's a little project that I just started. So I know that you have wfryer.me, which you got after learning about tonyv.me, which what led me to get FelixJ.me. And I said, you know what, this is really helpful. And hopefully you'll actually be one of my testimonials as to why this is a good thing. So let me be as transparent as possible. I started a website service for setting up URL shorteners that are branded. So a user purchases a domain name, I set it up for them, and then they pay me an installation fee and then a monthly fee for that service. What I'm setting up is open source. So if you have a host, if you're not scared of PHP and and all that and setting it up yourself, by all means, save yourself the money, do it. If you don't have a host, if you just want the benefits of it and you'd rather just pay a bit and have me set it up for you, that's what that's for. But so the name of the site is TinyLink, but with a Q at the end instead of a K. So tinylink.com. And I wrote a couple of articles, and I'm just getting this started, right? On the benefits is why you want to have that, as an author. So I wrote one post on why you want to have it as an author, especially if it's in print. Because the other day, and this is one of the reasons why I decided to start this, I was reading a friend of mine's a publication, and I went to one of the links, and the link was broken. So I reached out to her and said, hey, was this a typo? No, it wasn't a typo at the time, but they have since taken down the link. I said, wow, that could have been avoided had this person had her own link shortener. Why? Because they're editable, as you would know.
That's right.
So they take down that YouTube video. Well, if the video's gone, it's gone, but you could always take the link, edit it to either a new video that kind of gets the same point across, or maybe a blog post, or maybe just a page on your site that says, hey, they took it down, but this was the point of it. That plus, you also want to know what people are linking to the most, what is having the most impact. So it gives you analytics. And yeah, you could do that with Google or Bitly. And there's paid services, there's other services, but this one you're also tacking on your own brand, be it your name or your book. If you go to the website itself, just a few people that are actual mutual friends of ours. Leslie Fisher got Leslie.link. She was thrilled about that one. That's a good one. Steve Dembo, he's and he was able to get T42.link. I set it up for Carl over at MrHook.it. So it reads as Mr. Hookit. Adam Fayal got AskAdam3.me. And one of the authors, the first author, I guess, that has his link shortener that I set up for him in print is John Soash. And he released the book, The Chromebook Classroom. So his shortened links are chrm.tech. And he's, you could read all the testimonials that are on tinylink.com on that. So yeah, that's what I came up with.
Awesome. And that's a good reminder. I've got several book projects, a couple new ones, and some things I need to revise. And as I think about sharing out those websites, that's a great encouragement to think about doing it. You've got to maintain it, right? As Peggy mentioned in the chat, if somebody stops maintaining their site, that could actually, cause those links to not work. But especially if you're the one doing it and you're going to say, hey, I'm keeping this alive.
I keep them updated, the software updated, as well as I'm always looking for new extensions for that, or plugins, whatever they call them. Right. And there's a lot of really useful ones,
Fantastic.
On how to shorten on the fly. There's even a Chrome extension for that and all that. So, yeah,
that's awesome.
Fun stuff.
Glad to hear about that. All right. Well, we've gone a little bit longer, but this has been so fun. And
great.
Felix, you're just one of my favorite people. I can't wait. Hey. I don't know if I'm going to get to get down to the Learning Fest, but we got to go. Was it year before last? I'll never forget. I'll have to say this. The absolute ultimate end to an EdTech conference happened at my high school, Manhattan High School in Manhattan, Kansas, when Felix gave the closing keynote, and he wrote a song that he sang and performed on the piano as the synchronized keynote, was there, and it was Frozen, right? Was it?
Yeah. It's called "Do You Want to Be Connected" instead of "Do You Want to Build a Snowman." However, I cannot take credit for the writing of it. And that would be, oh my gosh, why is his name escaping me right now? Let me see. Oh, thanks to my handy dandy link shortener, I could go to felixj.me/d. Why do you want to be connected? So yeah, if you go to felixj.me/dywtbc, it's Jed Derryberry. That's right.
And so if you're on the committee, I'm sure many of the ISTE committee are here listening to the show. You know, Felix would just be your ultimate end to the ISTE conference because he would say that. So anyway, Felix, if people would like to connect with you after the show tonight, where can they find you online?
Google my name. But fortunately, I'm only one of the few Felix Giacominos in the world. My dad's one of the other ones. But yeah, Twitter handle, Felix Giacomino, felixgiacomino.com. But Google me, you'll find me. Trust me.
Awesome. And I am W. Fryer on Twitter, continuing to blog and podcast periodically on speedofcreativity.org. And as I mentioned, the digcit.us website, we have been updating and are going to continue to update that for school, but to continue the conversations with digital citizenship. So we are thankful for our live viewers, for Scott and Peggy that have tuned in live, and want to remind everybody that next week's show will also be a little bit off on time. Will still be Wednesday, but we're going to be, and I should have looked at this, we're going to be with Cheryl Oakes and Alice Barr up in Maine. And Cheryl, I think, is actually retired from the classroom. If you follow her on Facebook, you're just going to see a whole bunch of skiing pictures because I think she just skis nonstop now that she's retired. But we'll be 2 hours early. And so that'll be starting at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. So until next time, we encourage everybody to stay safe, stay savvy, and start to get hooked up with your URL shortener with Felix.